Ladies and gentlemen, the stars from across the business and political spectrum, having made their way up a very, very grand staircase, are now gathered here at the magnificent Egmont Palace. Live from Brussels on Euronews, you are watching the first ever European Leadership Award here, as I said, in this beautiful, wonderful palace. Tonight we celebrate the inspiring people who have really led Europe and are still leading Europe with their amazing work, both within their organizations and beyond. And your support here, by being here tonight, and for those watching at home, you're telling them what they do absolutely matters to help Europe lead the world. Now, these folks touch lives at every level, so we opened the voting for these awards, and by we, I mean Euronews and EBS, to the public, who chose not just the nominees, but also the winner of this year's European Leader Award. Now, of the remaining categories, that is the European Entrepreneur, CEO, Innovator, and Personality of the Year, the public nominated their contenders, and our wonderful jury of 8 had the very, very difficult task of picking who they thought deserved that title. Now, to kick off tonight, we're going to start off with the Euronews and EBS In Memoriam Prize. We all know that leadership is about more than power, more than recognition, and it's definitely more than simply authority. The hard, unforgiving fact is that leadership is painful, it's costly, and it's thankless. Nelson Mandela once said that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. And no one could really personify that more than my fellow journalist, Malta's most intrepid investigative journalist, Daphne Caruana Galizia.
It is a very corrupt country.
Could I please be honored and call upon the stage the European Parliament President, Antonio Tajani, to award this particular prize on behalf of both Euronews and EBS to the late Daphne Caruana Galizia for her lifelong work in furthering the most fundamental principle of the European Union, the freedom of the press. Thank you very much. I do want you to give us a few words because I know this fundamental principle is so close to your heart.
Thank you very much, dear friends of Daphne Caruana Galizia family. The European Union is not only European Central Bank, is not only the internal market. Is first of all a unity of values. And one of the most important values is freedom. And among the freedom, there is the freedom of the press. I am not only the President of the European Parliament, I am a journalist. I worked 20 years as a journalist. And for me, it's an honor, it's a pleasure to stay here for this hour. Le Parlement européen représente deux peuples européens. Personne ne peut oublier Daphne et Jan Kuciak.
And no one can forget Daphne Caruana Galizia.
Nous continuerons à exiger justice.
We will continue to demand justice in the name of thousands of her readers who went to a ceremony at the church for her, at 500,000 citizens who cry out for justice for her. And I declare here that I will never stop trying to find out why Daphne was assassinated. We know the names of the assassins, but what we want to know is why she was assassinated. Who is behind, who ordered this assassination?
Who is the mother of the killers? We want to know the name, the father and the mother of the killers.
Sorry, that was lack of concentration.
Voilà pourquoi nous avons décidé de dédier la salle de presse du Parlement européen à Strasbourg à Daphne Caruana Galizia.
To dedicate the press room at the Parliament to Daphne Caruana Galizia. And every time we speak of her, we must also organize actions at the Parliament and outside the Parliament. Because the murder of a journalist hits us at the very heart, and we have adopted a resolution to reinforce the protections of investigative journalists, and we ask for funding for this. We want to protect all journalists in any form, and we also want to stop all forms of pressure and repression on journalists. It's important for politicians to have the courage to support journalists and to support their investigative work of the police on the one hand, not only in Malta, but of other countries as well. This must be a European investigation to understand who ordered this assassination, who was responsible for her death. Are there financial interests behind it? We cannot accept this. And Europe must never be used either as a platform for money laundering, because if we cannot defend our values, then how can we tell the Turks and the Russians to respect the rights of journalists? This is absolutely unacceptable, that we kill a journalist, that a journalist be murdered in Europe. This is why we are deeply committed to resolving this issue. And we will never give up. In the name of all European journalists, in the name of all members of Parliament, the European Parliament, I tell you that we are committed to defending the freedoms of all in Europe, the freedom of the press and the freedoms of all. So we are committed to this. We shall never forget Daphne and her work. We will always speak of her and her work. And this demands that we understand why. And we must continue the battle to defend all journalists in Europe. And this is the commitment that we make to the sons of Daphne Caruana Galizia.
In the next weeks, in the next month, in the next years, because we need to achieve the goal. And the goal, as I said, is to know the name, the father or the mother of the killers. Thank you.
President Tajani, those were powerful words indeed, and a promise that many of my fellow journalists will be quite grateful for. But in the meantime, could I please invite on stage Andrew and Matthew Caruana Galizia to accept this award on behalf of their late mother, our In Memoriam Prize to Daphne. Matthew, Andrew, would you kindly give us a few words on behalf of your mother?
First of all, I'd like to thank you, President Tajani, for your commitment, not only to my mother's cause, but also to European values. I'd also like to thank the European Leadership Awards for inviting us here and for honoring our mother in this way. There are those who question the value of an award when the recipient, my mother, Daphne, has already been killed for her work, when the people who ordered her assassination remain at large, and when the conditions that enabled her murder remain as dangerous as ever. My mother's death and the manner in which she was killed are an unmitigated disaster for press freedom in Europe. And they're a symptom of deep institutional failure in Malta and institutional powerlessness in Europe. 7 months since her assassination, none of this has changed. Just today, another man was wounded and possibly killed in another bombing in Malta. The situation in Malta, it's not only in Malta that the situation has grown more frightening. The danger has also spread to other parts of Europe. Soon after my mother was killed, the investigative journalist Jan Kuciak was killed with his fiancée in Slovakia. Then an Italian journalist, Paolo Borrometti, barely escaped a contract killing last month in Sicily. And 2 weeks ago, a journalist in Montenegro, Olivera Lakic, was shot in the leg. Knowing this, people ask how an award can help my family with justice, help my compatriots fight corruption, hold the state to account for allowing its most powerful critic to be executed in broad daylight, and help Europe understand that it is failing its values' most strident defenders. As a citizen, I share these sentiments, and I ask the same questions. An award would have been more useful when my mother was still alive. But as my mother's son, I feel differently, as does the rest of my family. We feel differently because we were forced to learn early on that the killing of my mother was only one step towards making her disappear. The next steps were to kill her legacy, to turn the public against her, to intimidate and harass anyone who dared memorialize her, fight for justice for her assassination, or campaign for investigations into the crimes that she uncovered. How is a journalist's legacy destroyed? First, by celebrating her death. My mother's readers, her colleagues in the Maltese and international press, her friends and my family and I have been compelled to accept that in our small island home there are politicians, public officials, police officers, and people who have never read anything that my mother wrote, who are happy that she was killed, and particularly happy that her death was so horrific. Some of the people who are responsible for my mother's protection and who are now responsible for securing justice for her death are pleased that she can no longer report on the ethical breaches, condemn the corrupt practices, or mock their incompetence. We know this because they are not embarrassed to say so. Second, by distorting her work when she is no longer alive to defend it. People in government who exercise vast powers over state media, law enforcement, and the minds of many of my compatriots have continued to call my mother a purveyor of fake news, a hate blogger, a traitor and a witch, effectively blaming her for her own assassination, for writing too freely, for expressing herself too critically, and for hurting the feelings of dangerous people who she should have known better than to offend. A third way a journalist's legacy is destroyed is by encouraging people to forget her, hoping that they will also forget her work, as well as the fact that whoever paid for her assassination continues to enjoy complete impunity. My country's Home Affairs Minister downplayed my mother's targeted killing as unlucky. The Finance Minister described the global outrage that followed her death as exaggerated. And the Prime Minister signaled 2 months after her funeral that it was time to move on. A makeshift memorial to my mother in Valletta, which happens to be this year's European Capital of Culture, has been removed 9 times and replaced 10 times. Banners put up to keep her memory alive are constantly being torn down and replaced. Vigils held to mark the 16th of every month, the day my mother was killed, never make it to state television, and the organizers are jeered out in the street and mocked by public officials. My mother is now beyond all and any harm and no longer needs anyone's protection. But her memory continues to be targeted by powerful people who won't rest until her legacy has been completely destroyed. We can't let that happen. Her legacy, as you recognize today, was a gift to and belongs to society. It's a legacy that inspired many thousands of people in Malta, Europe, and around the world to find their own voices, to demand more of themselves and the people who make the rules, and to understand that we cannot improve the world only through good deeds, but that we must also find the courage to fight the immoral and immoral within our societies. By extending this award to my mother's legacy, you protect it. And in accepting this award on behalf of my mother, I also accept it on behalf of the handful of brave journalists in Malta who continue her work, on behalf of the civil society activists who keep her memory alive, often at great personal risk, on behalf of the people who keep turning up at vigils and protests dedicated to my mother, even when everything seems so hopeless, on behalf of the journalists across the world who have retold her story many hundreds of times, and yes, even on behalf of politicians in Europe and at home who have taken up my mother's cause. I won't name these people here. They're big enough targets as it is. But they have all helped protect my mother's memory, and in doing so have become part of her legacy. And they have brought us closer to justice, not criminal justice for her death, perhaps, but another sort of justice, one that recognizes her life's work as a contribution to all of us, and her assassination as a crime against us all. Thank you.
Thank you so very much for your bravery and for continuing the work. And President Tajani, thank you very much. Thank you very much for giving us your time. To honor Daphne is a fantastic way to start an evening where we are also trying to start a legacy with Euronews and EBS with this award. So, if you will permit me, I will move to our winner of tonight's European Leader of the Award, who was chosen by public vote. Could I request my boss, the CEO of Euronews, Michael Peters, to please come up on stage to present our award for the European Leader of the Year. It's got to be hard to think about starting off a legacy like this. Can you tell our viewers at home and our wonderful guests here what brought about the idea for the European Leader Award?
Yes, I even want to say, why now? Why didn't we do that 25 years ago? When I see what just happened at the beginning of this ceremony. So, to make it short, there are stories in Europe, there are experiences, there are people, there are talents, there are everything of that. And we don't speak enough about all of them, I think. And such a media like Euronews, the first news media in Europe, has to be here to just pay a tribute to all these talents. So, I mean, this is obvious. We should have done that many, many years ago. And I thank you so much, Jean, from the European Business Summit. We had this idea last year, coming to this fantastic event, and I'm so happy that we did it. And I have to say that the beginning of this ceremony and what has been expressed by our friends about what happened to a journalist that we all share just show that we had to do these events.
Well, I'm going to hand you this rather important-looking envelope. And in the meantime, let's announce our nominees. First up, Emmanuel Macron, President of France. I'm sure we have a video there somewhere. Angela Merkel, the Chancellor of Germany, and Margaret Vestager, the European Commissioner for Competition. Let's open up that wonderful envelope.
So the winner is Emmanuel Macron.
Ambassador Philippe of Iglesia Costa on stage, please, to receive the award on behalf of President Macron.
Monsieur le Président, merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président du Parlement européen. Je vais lire au nom du Président de la République le message qu'il souhaite vous adresser à cette occasion.
Thank you very much, the President of the European Parliament. I'd like to read the message.
Je regrette sincèrement de ne pas pouvoir être présent ce soir.
I'd like to thank Euronews and the EBS.
Il remercie les internautes et le jury.
Mr. Macron apologizes for not being with you tonight.
Le président rappelle son engagement
I'd like to thank the jury and all of the voters who have elected him.
nombreuses reprises, que ce soit à Athènes, à la Sorbonne, au Parlement européen et à Aix-la-Chapelle. Vous connaissez sa conviction, c'est par la démocratie que l'on ravivera l'Europe des peuples, alors que moins d'un
You all know his commitment to democracy.
élections européennes. C'est le sens des consultations citoyennes qui ont été
And at the same time, we know that less than half Europeans vote in European elections the last time.
Appelle à la construction d'une nouvelle souveraineté européenne renforcée, ce qui implique de relever plusieurs défis à court terme. Les migrations.
The President calls for a stronger
L'Union
European
européenne doit continuer de
solidarity.
cultiver son approche singulière, respectueuse des libertés individuelles et des données personnelles, qui fait désormais référence.
Europe must continue to respect individual liberties and respect privacy as well.
Qui fasse avancer la convergence au sein de la zone euro. La culture.
The monetary union must also be reinforced. Culture as well must be given life through our universities.
Le président appelle à ne pas perdre de
And other measures such as the protection of copyright.
Et partage 4 impératifs d'action pour faire vivre le projet européen. Premier impératif.
Europe is not a given, it takes work.
L'Europe doit
And
être
we
à la
must not be
hauteur
weak
des enjeux, qu'ils soient
in the face of this work.
liés au numérique, économique.
Europe must rise up to the challenges, be they environmental, economic,
Puissance se mettent en situation de décider pour nous. Alors,
matters of trade and the environment.
deuxième impératif, nous ne devons pas nous diviser. Croire qu'on se
We must meet these challenges or face losing our solidarity. We must remain united as well.
que sur une solidarité constante. Nous ne devons
It's a mistake to believe that we can be stronger if we separate.
Il ne faut rien céder sur l'état de droit, sur la vitalité de nos démocraties et de nos débats. Les contestations
We must not be fearful either.
qui fait notre identité.
We must take strength from our democracies and support
Nous ne
debate.
devons pas attendre pour faire le choix de l'Europe.
And finally, we mustn't stand by and wait
Sur certains sujets,
for Europe to
en
happen.
laissant toujours la possibilité
We must
à
make
tous
it
de nous
happen.
rejoindre. Nous ne pouvons pas considérer que le choix de l'Europe serait le choix du plus petit
We
dénominateur.
must remain open to others becoming members.
C'est ce message d'engagement que le président de la République française doit porter pour notre Europe. Je vous remercie.
Europe is a joint effort for all of us, and it is worth it.
Gentlemen, thank you so very much. And thank you, Michael, for giving a voice to our public vote that chose the winner of tonight's European Leader Award, being the French president. Not surprising, his popularity is quite high in many countries around the world. We now move to the categories that our public and our jury together have decided. Like I said, our public vote got us the nominees, and our jury then selected. And we begin with our next award, which recognizes dynamism, the resilience you all need to really lead a company into the future with sustainable growth. Could you all give a big round of applause to Marcus Beyer? He is the Director General of Business Europe, to present our next award. So, I'm going to hand you that. Don't. He's in a hurry to figure out who is the winner. I'm going to give you that. Good. Give me one answer. What defines an amazing CEO to you?
Well, somebody who is disruptive, somebody who takes decisions, and somebody who moves us forward. And I would like to thank Euronews and, of course, the European Business Summit for making this award, because we have seen that in this world we have so many insecurities that we need leaders, we need great CEOs, and we need people who bring us forward. And this is what you value here, and I think this is what we need to do.
So before Marcus opens that, we're going to get you the nominees, and they are Anna Boutin, Executive Chairman of the Santander Group. She leads the largest bank in Europe by market cap. Edita Kocik founded Sidley in 2014 and has opened a whole new world within the medical diagnosis business with her telemedicine bracelet. And Lisa Lang was a game changer in digital innovation. She founded Electricator in 2014 as well, and is in the top 100 most influential people in the world of wearable technology. So now, Marcus, you can open that envelope.
Been too fast. And the winner is Edita Kocik.
As Edita makes her way up, I'm going to tell you this award is pretty heavy, so kudos to anyone who can give speeches holding on to this. Word about winning something, starting something in 4 years, and then being in this room.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, 4 years ago, my grandmother got ill to dementia. It was a really difficult time for all my family. It was the time when my grandmother needed to help all the time. I remember the situation when on the middle at night my grandmother went to go to walk, but she didn't remember about it, and she didn't know where she is. It was the situation which was really difficult for my family, but it was a situation when I started thinking about the Sidley, the telecare project. Then I decided that I built the solution thanks to all the time I know how feel my grandmother and when she is. It was 4 years ago. Now this solution is used by several thousand users on 16 countries. I have a good, very good team, growing business. And I would like to say that very important is that everything is possible, but very important issue is that two issues. The first is good motivation, and the next is global thinking.
And you seem to have both. Congratulations once again. Thank you so very much. Big round of applause for an amazing job done. Well, we are speeding along, so our next award is Entrepreneur of the Year. Please welcome one of our fantastic jury members and advisory partner at Ernst & Young, Beat Diggen, to hand the award to the person who has really epitomized this European way of thinking, competitiveness, creativeness, entrepreneurial spirit. The magic question here is, what really defines a successful entrepreneur? Because it's got to be more than money, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it was Einstein who said you cannot solve the problem of today with the way of thinking which created this. And I think this defines a great entrepreneur, to use new thinking to think and develop something new. Good answer?
That's a perfect answer. That's like a soundbite answer. Journalists love that, especially broadcast ones. I'm going to give you that to hold on to while we announce the nominees. Antonio Lucena de Faria founded his first company at 15 years old. He is the brains behind Fabrica, the accelerator for Portuguese and Brazilian startups working on challenges of renewable energy and urbanization. Sebastian Siemitkowski, he founded an online payment portal at the age of 23 with zero experience in banking. 12 years later, over 60 million people use Klarna. Bojan Slak dropped out of his aerospace engineering course, convinced the likes of Peter Thiel he could clean up half the world's ocean off the plastic, killing our marine life. This 23-year-old is the founder of Ocean Cleanup.
And the winner is Bojan Slak.
Hop over on this side, make some better pictures. Give you that to hand over.
Congratulations, fantastic.
Can I get you to stand here? Bojan, can we get a few words? Because your story is inspiring and what you're trying to achieve is so very close to a lot of people's hearts now, but no one used to think about it.
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks a lot for this award. I would say maybe it's rather prematurely given since we haven't cleaned the ocean yet. But we've
giving
been
it a good old try is half the fun.
Thanks. But yeah, so at the Ocean Cleanup, we develop advanced technologies to rid the oceans of plastic. There are 5 areas in the world where plastic concentrates, the largest one being the infamous Great Pacific Garbage Patch halfway between Hawaii and California. If you were to try and remove this with boats and nets, it would take literally tens of thousands of years to do that, because the area is 3 times the size of France, containing 1.8 trillion pieces of plastic, so that would take quite a while. I'm not that patient. So we thought there must be a better way. So what we've developed is a passive method that uses very long U-shaped floating barriers that act like an artificial coastline there where there is no coastline. It's powered by the natural ocean currents, and it moves around, first concentrating the plastic like a giant funnel before we then take it out and ship it to land for recycling. And now the models show we should be able to remove half this Great Pacific Garbage Patch in just 5 years' time. And we are now preparing over the past 5 years. We've done the reconnaissance, we've done all the prototyping, and we're now actually building the first system, which we aim to launch in the Pacific Ocean later this summer. So thanks a lot for the team, thanks a lot for the funders and all the other supporters around the world for getting us to the point that we're actually ready to start the cleanup. And yeah, thank you all for giving this to us. Thanks.
A big round of applause for a very, very impressive cause. Thank you both very, very much. We move on to our next category, and this is Europe's Innovator of the Year. Can I welcome Mr. Anand Krishnan, Chief Technology Officer of one of the world's biggest technology companies, Tata Consultancy Services, to present the award for the most inventive, progressive, visionary in European innovation today. You started off this dinner, which our viewers didn't have access to your speech, of what really defines an innovator to you. In a quick sentence, because you've got big to now compete with, what would you say that is?
Brave people, big idea, deep knowledge of what they're trying to solve, who their customer is, and lots of patience and risk-taking ability.
Fantastic answer, and here are the nominees. Christian Imre. This Hungarian has invented the extended visual assistant, a voice-controlled eyeglass that converts images and text into audio for the visually impaired. Max and Alan Mohammadi. The two Swedish-Iranian brothers invented heartstrings. This is the world's first artificial intelligence technology which diagnoses heart disease early. And Professor Emmanuel Oliero. He's the head of the robotics division of the University of Seville. His work on aerorobotics has led to the development of the first drones with advanced capabilities. So tell us who won.
Christian Imre.
Wondering if he is in the room, and he potentially has not arrived, but I'll accept the award on his behalf because that's what good hosts do. But if I can get you to hold on to it, that would be fantastic. And when we find him in the room, make sure we give it to him, and then make sure you make him an offer.
Thank you.
To work with him. Thank you very, very much for coming on. We very quickly move on to our next award, which is for the personality that both our public and our jury thought would define 2018. Now, I'm not sure I would have wanted that job, but I am sure that some of our jury members who are sitting around here tonight had a tough time with this decision. Please welcome one of our jury members on stage, Arno Burns. He is the International Sustainability Advisor and Associate Senior Research Fellow at the Center for European Policy Studies, to present this award, whichever way you want to come, for the personality bringing about transformation in Europe. How hard was it to make this choice?
It was indeed very difficult. They're all very inspiring and motivated people, very political people, and indeed also very young people. So I think it also gives a very positive view to the future of Europe to have these nominees.
Well, on that note, hold on to that, because you've worked very hard to figure out who's going to win, and we'll tell you who the nominees are. Florin Badita, founder of Corruption Kills. He is fighting to put an end to the decriminalization of Romania's corruption cases. Andres Fekete-Győr, he's an activist, lawyer, politician, and the leader of the Inventive movement, a coalition for democracy in Hungary, opposing the current government. And Barbara Nowacka, activist and politician, she is the chair of the Initiative Poland and co-leader of the United Left, fighting to liberalize abortion laws in Poland. So who's the winner?
The winner is Florin Badita, founder of Corruption Kills.
Thank you. I didn't know that I have to prepare a speech, but I was invited to write here, so I will read a little from here. First, thanks for all of the people that voted and for the jury that decided. I will try to be short. We have 27 countries now in Europe, but we have to kill our ego, because we have not only 27 countries, we have European Union that has to be together. Concrete things that we could do, from my point of view, because earlier we had people speaking about the corruption in Malta, and what you do in Poland is perfect and is great and is useful. And one of the suggestions that we have is to make a conference for 1,000 activists from all around Europe to meet for 1 week in Romania, where we can get to know each other and we can become much stronger if we know each other. Usually we are doing a thing in Romania, but other people are doing much better thing probably in other countries, and we don't know each other. If we get to know each other, then we can collaborate and we can create European projects that will help fight populism, fake news, and other things. Another thing that we can do, I'm also in investigative journalism, mostly as a hobby, and one of the problems that we have is the lack of data that we have. So two simple things that could be done and are more simple to done, maybe probably in the European level, would be to post directly the land ownership, who's owning the land, especially if it's like companies or stuff like that, so we can do investigative much more fast. And also, so this would be with the land ownership and more transparency, basically. We need more transparency so we can investigate and find out much more simple which companies are corrupt and to see if there's a political ties between themselves. Thank you.
Florian, thank you so very much for your kind words. And to all the nominees who are doing such a fantastic job, thank you for doing what you do. And Florian, thank you so much for what you do as well. Thank you all for being here, because that pretty much brings us to the end of the European Leadership Awards of 2018. I'd like to extend a special thanks to LECO, our media partner, as well. And thank you all for joining us, being so very patient in this room and at home, for going through each and every one of these stories with us, because they're so very important. Thank you for voting. That's absolutely key, and I hope next year even more of you participate in the decisions that we have taken in this room tonight. Thank you for recognizing the leaders who are putting Europe in their different ways towards a better, brighter, unified tomorrow, and showcasing European leadership in these rather difficult times. Thank you all very much. Good night.